This time, we're taking a special look at Zack Snyder's Justice League. And along the way we asked, could Ben Affleck have been the best on-screen Batman? Exactly how much of this film is in slow motion? And is there a future for the DC Extended Universe? This is Force-Fed Sci-Fi. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a very special edition of the Force-Fed Sci-Fi podcast. I am one of your hosts, Chris Rupp, and I am joined by my friend and co-host,
The Flash, Sean Michael Cope.
Okay, so if you were in the Justice League, the Flash would be your guy?
No, I mean, obviously, I'm a lover of Batman. Batman is the man. But I do have a shirt that is the Flash. It's like a retro vintage Flash shirt from Six Flags from like 2006. So whenever I wear it, everyone always assumes I love the Flash. So I'm just going to go with it, man. I am the Flash. Because I used to run track and cross, so it just makes sense. What character would you be, Chris?
You know, the obvious choices would be Batman or Superman, and I just got to go with Batman. Batman's my favorite comic book character ever.
Oh,
and
he's the bomb.
I relate hard to Batman sometimes.
Why can I not open up emotionally to people?
Well, for one thing, my mother's name isn't Martha, so I don't have that going for me.
That's good, and they are still alive, which is good.
Yes.
You don't have that childhood scarring in that way. But many.
So, like we said, we're talking about the new cut of Justice League, the appropriately titled Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I, for one, was excited to see this, and we'll certainly get into the finer points of it later in our show today. But I don't know about you, but I was kind of left unthrilled by the 2018 release. I don't know how you felt about it.
2018 release. I watched it, I think, like 2 years ago or something, and to me it was just like kind of meh. I think I got bored halfway through and just turned it off. It just didn't really make sense to me.
I guess 2017 is when it came out.
Yeah, I honestly, if I could be honest, I really haven't seen much of these Zack Snyder films. I hate to say it, but I saw Man of Steel, and it was okay. It was a decent movie. But after that, like, I was away in AIT when Batman vs. Superman came out, and I heard it sucked, so I never saw it. And I heard about the infamous, Martha, why did you say that name? And I was like, all right, I'm not going to watch this movie. And I heard Justice League sucked, too. So I was like, well, I'm not going to watch this either. So the only actual Snyder film that I have seen, and it's not even Snyder, actually, part of his universe was Suicide Squad. And that was terrible. So I'm pretty much, outside of like Wonder Woman, I think those Wonder Woman, Suicide Squad, and Man of Steel are the only three that I've ever seen.
Yeah, this was certainly in that weird period where DC and Warner Brothers was trying to do too much of what Marvel was already doing, and it definitely hindered the quality of their films.
Oh yeah, it was like studio pandering to the nth degree. They wouldn't let the directors do what they could do, you know? But we can talk about that once we talk about like production and everything.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think everybody's familiar with the plot of Justice League. There's these ancient alien boxes called mother boxes that wake up now that Superman's dead, and apparently aliens think, oh, Earth is up for the taking now, so all these powerful aliens just descend on Earth to go after these mother boxes, and so Batman must work together with Wonder Woman and get all these metahumans together and find a way to resurrect Superman and just defend Earth in a very Avengers-esque plot.
Low-key, if I do recall the original, like 2017, I had no idea what the hell the boxes were for. But when I started watching this movie, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, there was, I didn't I mean, I'm not as huge into the, like DC comics. I mean, I'm certainly familiar with Batman, but I mean, obviously, Batman doesn't go toe-to-toe with Darkseid too often, so I'm a tad unfamiliar with the concept of these mother boxes.
Same. I didn't know that they're part of the lore, to be honest. It shows how lack of a DC fan I am. But, I mean, in the movie, it made sense, right? Like, all right, they need the boxes to, Lazarus pit this man.
Yeah, or you at least need one of them, but I think all three of them together just totally terraform planets and just make it and just shape it to the will of its creator or whoever.
Right. So these boxes are essentially the fist of Thanos, the glove with all the Infinity Stones.
Yeah, they're basically like they're basically giant Infinity Stones, and put them together on that slab, it becomes the Infinity Gauntlet, and you can do whatever you want, pretty much.
Right on. So Chris, who is in this film? We already said Zack Snyder directed it, and I think you said Ben Affleck is Batman, but who else, if people don't already know?
I mean, the cast is unchanged from the previous version of Justice League, but we do have some familiar faces coming back from previous DC films. Gal Gadot is Wonder Woman. You got Jason Momoa as Aquaman. Henry Cavill is back as Superman. Ezra Miller is the Flash. Newcomer Ray Fisher, he's Victor Stone / Cyborg. Then you get Ciaran Hinds as Steppenwolf. Joe Morton as Silas Stone, Victor Stone's father. Jeremy Irons, who really gives an underrated performance, as Alfred Pennyworth.
Amen.
And then you kind of get into the nitty gritty of sort of like the supporting characters. You've got Amber Heard as Mira, who eventually becomes Aquaman's girlfriend. You've got J.K. Simmons playing Commissioner Gordon. And then really briefly, you get these 3 cameos close to the end of the film. You have Jared Leto returning to play the Joker in that nightmare apocalypse sequence where he has a very sexually charged conversation with Batman. And then you got Jesse Eisenberg and Joe Manganiello returning as Lex Luthor and Deathstroke, respectively. And that scene at the end, in the end credits, is significantly different than it was in the original cut, and we'll certainly talk about that in a moment. But, I mean, this is a great cast. Like, if I were going to do a Justice League movie and I were casting it, I probably would not do better than this cast.
No, it's bloated as hell, and it's fantastic actors in there. You got a whole array of people, from Oscar winners to people that have been nominated. So I think that's a hell of a cast.
Yeah, and I don't know how you felt about the Ben Affleck casting as Batman, but I was hesitant, to say the least, but I was willing to give him a chance because I thought he could really crush the role if the dialogue was right and he prepared for it. I don't know how you felt about Ben Affleck.
I echo your feelings as well. I know a lot of people hate Ben Affleck. I actually enjoy him. I think he's a good actor. It's tough because I still think they did all these like movies too close to the last trilogy from Nolan. So it is always tough for me to shake the taste out of like Christian Bale out of my mouth, like his Batman, as opposed to Ben Affleck. But honestly, this film, to me, I think Ben Affleck was great. I think he's a fantastic Bruce Wayne. To me, he didn't seem out of place, you know? He didn't seem like George Clooney when he played Batman. So to me, I actually enjoyed him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, after seeing him in Batman v Superman, I mean, I know a lot of people have very differing opinions about that film, but I am one of its defenders. Like, I do not hate that film. It appeals to the hardcore Batman fanboy that lives inside of me, and you will never hear me say a crossword about Dawn of Justice. I think it's a great movie, and he really, with the exception of the Martha scene, he really kind of blew away my expectations as Batman, and I was very impressed with what he was able to do with not only as Batman but as Bruce Wayne, because it's very hard to pull off that dichotomy of Playboy Bruce Wayne that everybody sees. Then there's the Bruce Wayne that only Alfred knows, and then there's Batman, the almost supernatural vigilante crime fighter, and I thought he did an amazing job playing that character.
Yeah, I mean, he's serious. He's not like a cartoon. He looks the part. I don't think Ben Affleck like overdoes it, as the character Bruce Wayne. And honestly, to say so, the Dawn of Justice, I heard that initially because the studio like cut it to shreds, it sucked and it didn't make sense. But when they released like the extended version of it, that it actually made a lot more sense. So I haven't seen it. I heard that the extended version is way better, So I may watch it one day.
Yeah, the extended cut has something like in the neighborhood of like 20 to 30 additional minutes that weren't in the original cut. And me being me, of course, I have that. And I've watched it several times.
Is it better than the original?
I wouldn't say it's better. I would say it's a lot like the new cut of The Godfather Part 3 that recently came out. It's not better. It just gives more clarity to the film.
Okay.
And I leave that open to interpretation, whether or not anybody wants to think that makes it a better film. But for me, that additional footage just helps make Batman v Superman make sense.
All right. Well, I'll give it a shot because I heard that the reason why the movie bombed was because there were so many like holes in the plot. So I heard that the footage kind of fills those holes, and really, if that would, and that's like a theme that we'll talk about with Zack Snyder's movies. If they just let him release the product that he initially made, they probably would have had a better standing with the audience members and critics. We wouldn't have had this protest to get this frickin' film released 4 years later. But before we go into that, why don't we talk about the production? Well, I guess we can talk about that, with this film. So the initial came out in 2017. It bombed. It got eviscerated by the critics. They had Joss Whedon come in to clean house of the 2017 because Zack Snyder's daughter, I believe, committed suicide, unfortunately. And 90% of the way through the film, he was just like, I can't do this. And he bailed. So then they had Joss Whedon come in. They said, make it Marvel. And he tried the best of his ability to make this film Marvel, but it did not work. What you can add to that?
Yeah, Joss Whedon, coming off the success that was the Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron, Warner Brothers brought him on to do extensive rewrites. They wanted to punch up the humor. They wanted to, lighten up the plot a little bit. And that's also included reshooting many scenes that Zack Snyder had already shot. And
it was like $70 million.
$70 million, and the film was already pretty expensive to begin with. And because of those reshoots and the added production work, it caused the production of Justice League to balloon to in the neighborhood of $300 million. And you basically have an untenable budget with that. You have all this money that you spent, and that means you now have to make an ungodly amount of money just to break even. And Warner Brothers' projected break-even point for Justice League was somewhere between $675 million and $700 million.
Which is insane.
That is nuts, especially for how poorly the previous films in the DC Extended Universe had performed up to this point. That is an ungodly amount of expectations to put on this film. And because it was so panned and there was just a lack of enthusiasm for it, it only grossed about $657 million. And the estimates are unclear as to how much this cost the studio, but Warner Brothers, I think they've estimated that they'd lost somewhere in the neighborhood of $60 million following the bomb of Justice League.
Which is insane.
Imagine the most money you've ever made. And you will have to keep imagining it for the next 1,000 years to get to $60 billion.
Well, all you got to do, Chris, is watch the 2017 Justice League and be like, that joke was worth $1 million. That joke was worth $2 million freaking dollars. It didn't land? No. Oh, God. And I heard that in the original Justice League, the 2017, you could, tell the difference because they, pulled Ben Affleck back in when he was, gaining weight for a different role. So, his face was fatter. The scenes that were reshoot Like, they were starkly different than the original version. Much like the ending for this one.
There was a lot more humor. Like, you could definitely feel Joss Whedon's handprints when he basically tore the original version to shreds. Like, the dialogue is a lot more humorous. There's a lot of weird jokes that come from Batman, and that was one of the changes that I noticed right away, was that pretty much any hint of humor that Batman has, or any hint of humor period in this film, is just gone.
No, he's serious, like Bruce Wayne should be, you know? Like, Bruce Wayne, I always thought of him as more of like a serious person, and his jokes, if he does make a joke, it's supposed to be like really once in a blue moon, and it's like supposed to be unexpected, you know? And this...
Yeah, Batman does not make jokes. He makes remarks. Whether or not you want to interpret that as jokes, that's up to you, but he does not joke.
No, he's a very serious man. And I think Ben Affleck, when I saw this, he got it down. I think, you know, those scenes with the Flash, with Gal Gadot, just all of them, to me, they were smooth. I mean, he was class. I thought he kind of reminded me of Keaton a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, Michael Keaton is still, I think, top 3 in terms of on-screen Batman.
By far.
But yeah, Ben Affleck definitely gave Michael Keaton a run for his money. Like, we finally get to see a nuanced Batman. And granted, his dialogue is still pretty corny. I don't think a lot of you basically would have to make an entirely different movie to sort of fix that. But yeah. Batman kind of oscillates between this, hero who wants to fight and defend people, but then he also has to struggle with the fact that he now is the de facto leader of the Justice League. So and that's not the only change. Obviously, with a total different cut, there's so many different things that have added into this film. Like, finally, Silas Stone gets a decent subplot. There's just more backstory involving Cyborg, and one of the complaints that I think was lobbed against the original was the fact that you introduce this new and interesting character and you give him next to no backstory and exposition.
Yeah, his character didn't make any sense. It was like, why is he there? He just seemed like shoehorned in. It just did it. His character, they didn't spend any time on in 2017. And the Flash was just weird. I remember kind of when I briefly watched parts of it, he was like obsessed with brunch, which was stupid. Whereas with this, there was no brunch mentioning. There was no brunch mentioning at all, which was great. And Cyborg, his character, honestly, in this film, I think Cyborg, to me, he kind of resonated. Him and Flash were like, to me, the peak of the film. I think they carried like the emotional weight.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, obviously the Flash is given like the briefest of prologues, and pretty much in that whole scene with that with Iris West, we don't even know that that's the character's name. You have to like look into the credits for her name, and she's never brought up again at any point in the film.
But it was so cool.
It was cool. It was even though half of it was in slow motion.
Yeah.
I mean, Zack Snyder is basically Michael Bay, but with slow motion instead of explosions. So,
dude, oh my God, I was thinking the same thing when watching this. I'm like, dude, this guy's like Michael Bay, but everything's slow mo. But he did the scene right, because all the hot dogs, when they were slow motion flying, I was like, I wonder if he's gonna take a hot dog, and he did. It's like, yes, feed it to the dog.
But yeah, I mean. Yeah, the Flash and Cyborg were two of the characters that were done wrong in the original cut. And finally, like, a lot of the corny dialogue was taken away from Flash. I mean, he doesn't seem like this little lost puppy compared to, Batman or Wonder Woman, because the Flash is a hero in his own right. Is he quirky? Yes. Is he meek? No. And that was one of the main, and I think in the original Justice League, there's this really weird scene where they're about to go fight some parademons, and Flash is all freaking out like, oh, I have this thing about guns and bugs, and all I do is just run really fast and I push people. Like, I don't know how to punch. Like, dude, like, you have your own superhero costume. Like, and you mean to tell me you're afraid now? Like, what are you doing? What is this?
I know. They made him out into such a wimp. Whereas with this, I love how Flash is, because him, like Cyborg, his dad is in jail. And to me, that was really cool. I didn't know that about Flash, at least in this universe. But having him be like the key, to resurrecting Superman, to being the guy that reverses time so they can kill Steppenwolf, to me, that was awesome. Because I feel like with these films, with the DC universe, they struggle with the Superman problem, where he's like God. He's just too incredible. But honestly, it was fantastic to see Zack Snyder get him right, Superman, he just didn't get there in time. He couldn't do it. It was out of his control. So they needed someone else to win. Because that's always the big argument with Superman, with, people that don't like DC. Well, he's perfect. So why does he just punch people to death, or use his laser vision to, like, zap them? But with this, how the story was wrote, it was fantastic. Like, they worked as a team, and they didn't know if he was going to come back. So I felt like how he executed using Superman in the story was 10 times better than 2017. 10 times better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think they steered into the skid when it comes to the problem with Superman, because when you have a movie like this and you omit Superman for much of it, at any point he shows up, he's going to be viewed as a Deus Ex Machina, and they just rolled with it. They have him blocking and breaking Steppenwolf's axe, and him just shaking his head going, not impressed, which I thought was an amazing intro to this character. That and
yes.
the black suit Superman, I'm a huge fan of the black suit for Superman.
Me too.
I wish that I wish he wore a black suit permanently. That's how great it looks on him.
I totally agree. I thought it was fantastic. And to get back to the Flash, the ending scene where he reverses time was so cool. Like, I didn't know that he could do that, because I don't know much about the Flash. But that whole scene, how it was executed, him being the key to the survival, was just so cool to the story arc. It was unexpected for me.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of the Flash's powers, and he even talks about that. Like, if I go too fast, I'll go back in time. And part of his backstory, or I guess one of the main, like, seminal moments in the character's history, is when he goes back in time, like, so quickly and totally changes, like, a bunch of characters' history. They call it the Flashpoint Paradox. And it totally changes the history of the DC timeline. I think one of the most memorable ones is Batman, where instead of Bruce Wayne's parents die, Bruce Wayne is killed. His dad becomes Batman, and his mom becomes the Joker, which is awesome.
Oh, I've heard of that. That is so cool.
Yeah, but it sets up, like, the potential for that appearing in future films if we got the Zack Snyder cut, which we didn't at the time.
To talk a little bit about more of Cyborg, I felt his father, whoever that actor was, did a great job. I think their relationship was fantastic. You felt the animosity, but as the film grew, he ended up, feeling for his dad and respecting his dad and not wanting him to die, which he ends up dying at the end, sacrificing himself, but in a way where it wasn't useless. It furthered the plot. And to me, that was great. Great storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, he gave him a way of tracking the mother box, which they needed. I mean, you can treat that as a plot hole or whatever, but I feel like Dr. Stone's death was essential for Victor to move on and embrace the human part of him that's still there while reconciling with the machine that's taken over his mind and body.
Exactly. It's so what else was changed in this film? Steppenwolf was the big one. He looks totally different. He looks badass as hell. He doesn't look like a weird CGI guy with, like, a green outfit. It's just God.
We also have the entire omission of the prologue from Joss Whedon's Justice League. There is no weird CGI face Superman. There's also no weird Batman scene, stringing out that burglar and luring the parademon. So the entire opening is just reworked for this film.
You mean the opening where he just so happens to see the bug explode in a bunch of boxes on the wall?
Yep. We also finally see Darkseid in this film.
Yes, and he looks badass as hell. So I don't know much about Darkseid. I think I read a comic book years ago where Darkseid like kills Superman, and then they have to go like back in time. It's like a weird issue. I think it's like Crisis, something Crisis.
Darkseid is like Darkseid is the Thanos of DC. To put it mildly.
Yes, and he's so cool as a villain. And I thought to me like the whole, I viewed this film as kind of like an epic, honestly, and that whole exposition that Wonder Woman spouts out to Bruce Wayne when she's explaining like why the boxes are important and all that. That whole scene where Darkseid and like Steppenwolf and all, like where they all come down and then they have the battle with like Zeus and the Aqua people and all that. That was so cool, man. It made me think Darkseid is like, wow, what a villain.
I mean, yeah, I mean, absolutely. He was only referenced in the briefest of lines in the original Justice League, and then here we finally see him. He is a presence, and he's freaking terrifying.
Mm-hmm. He is. I think they got him down. He looks so cool.
But there's so many things that actually set up a sequel, or would have potentially set up a sequel. The Martian Manhunter appears at the very end of the film. Deathstroke shows up thanks to Lex Luthor wanting to be a jackass and ruin Bruce Wayne's life. But also, major difference, this Zack Snyder's Justice League has a hard R rating.
Yeah.
Like, there is blood, there's swearing, and violence just off the charts, off the chain. Like, this film is definitely not for your little ones.
You think so? I mean, I guess. But, like, so, to me, the swear words didn't seem like they fit. Like, I feel like the swear words, the majority of the F words were used, like, in the extra portion, especially that last 10 minutes with Batman and the Joker talking, which we can talk about that and our thoughts on that. But I don't know. I guess maybe because, like, I'm almost 30, so when I see, like, CGI bug people exploding and, like, with their little guts, to me, that's like, it's fake. But I guess to, like, a 13-year-old, or, like, a 10-year-old, they'd be like, whoa, man, oh, my gosh.
I mean, depending what kind of parents you have, your parents might be cool with letting you watch this. But, I mean, me personally, like, if I had little children, this is not a film I'm having them sit down and watch with me. I'll show them the original Christopher Reeve Superman or have them watch some Adam West Batman. But no, they are not watching Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Well, you'd have to be able to strap him down to a chair. What 10-year-old is going to sit for 4 hours and watch this?
I know. 4 hours.
I mean, low key though, I used to watch Lord of the Rings all the time as a kid. And actually, this film made me want to watch Lord of the Rings now because it's such a fantastic epic. I feel like this is an epic.
Yeah, this is definitely in the vein of an epic film, but
it's like Ben-Hur.
I mean, it took a long way to get from Joss Whedon's Justice League to the Zack Snyder Justice League.
Oh,
and I think for as much crap as we hurl at fandom culture, I would say the fans are really the ones who are most responsible for making sure we got the Snyder Cut.
Yes, we had the hashtag release the Snyder Cut movement in 2017 because everyone was pissed off that Whedon came in and like screwed with the film, and they were just tired of it because we heard about how the Batman vs Superman had the extended cut, and that was great. And then they're like, what the hell? Why'd they make this film worse with Josh Whedon? So it ended up being successful, right?
I mean, yeah, eventually. I mean, it took them, almost 2.5 years really to meet with Zack Snyder, see what he wanted to do, and then finally greenlight a new cut of his film, which was announced in May 2020. But I dislike how Joss Whedon was almost excused from the criticism that was levied at the time. I feel like a lot of it unfairly went to Ben Affleck and Zack Snyder,
Mhm.
but people didn't understand the complexities that went on behind the scenes of this film.
Yeah. And it's not their fault. Like, it's the age of the studios again, you know? Like, they give Zack Snyder a crap load of money, and they can direct, they can write, they can film the movie that they want to, show. But at the end of the day, if the studio executives say, hey, we want a film that's like Marvel, they're going to cut his film to shreds. And they did. They omitted so many parts in having Joss Whedon come in and do like cleanup. That's why people are pissed, because they're like, this is garbage. CGI face? Like, what is this nonsense?
Yeah, I think there was just this general lack of awareness on the studio on just how pivotal Justice League would be to the DC extended universe.
Yeah, and
yeah,
go for it.
There were just so many actors in Justice League that expressed disappointment with how the film turned out. And Ciarán Hinds, who played Steppenwolf, Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, and Jason Momoa all expressed some version of disappointment, and even directors who made films in the DCEU, the James Wan, who did Aquaman, and Patty Jenkins, who did Wonder Woman and its sequel, all expressed this disappointment and I guess like a subdued anger at Joss Whedon for totally changing the trajectory of the DC extended universe, because a lot of what they did in their films, they based off of what Zack Snyder was doing in, or what they thought he was going to do in the Justice League.
Well, I guess part of it is, I guess you can't blame Joss Whedon in a way, because he was hired, he was given a crap load of money, and the executive said, make it funny, make it like Marvel. So they gave him $70 million, and that's what he did. So you can't like hate him for that, for trying to basically salvage a film that was 90% complete. But at the same token, they should have just waited and just let Zack Snyder return to the project when he was done grieving, Like, because this film, even though it's 4 hours long, they could have cut it in half. They could have had it finish when Steppenwolf and them were like underground and he was like blasted away by like the water and everything. That could have been the first part of the movie. And then he could have come back, reshot, done the rest, and then they could have had a 2-parter. But I mean, having Joss Whedon come in and cut down a 4-hour film to 2 hours, that's just insane.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't envy Joss Whedon for the task he was given, but I think he does have to shoulder some of the blame for how the original film turned out, as well as Warner Brothers to I think if I were going to assign like blame splittage, I would say 40% of it on Joss Whedon and 60% of it is on Warner Brothers for this Herculean task of not only rewriting most of the film, but also reshooting it to make it like the Avengers.
I know. And hopefully, I mean, we could say, would you say that COVID allowed this to happen? If it wouldn't have been for COVID-19, we probably wouldn't have had the Zack Snyder release. I kind of believe that.
I mean, I can believe that to an extent, but the hashtag release a Snyder Cut movement really started almost immediately after the original Justice League came out. And I think the original film just left so many people with a bad taste in their mouth. And certainly COVID, with people spending most of their time indoors and on their keyboards or phones and on Twitter or whatever. Yes, the movement certainly gained steam, but given how it was announced in May of 2020 that a new cut would be released, I have a feeling that these discussions were long ruminating, and something like this was going to happen at some point. But COVID the impetus? It's possible, but we'll never know for certain. But I don't think it can be stated or overstated just how disastrous the original Justice League was to the trajectory of the DCEU, and the films that came out in that same year and the films that came out after it.
Oh, yeah. And if you watch this whole film, the 4 hour, it's long, but it's almost like a love song to all those universes. I mean, he fleshes out the Flash, fleshes out Cyborg, even a little bit of Batman. He pays such a tribute to what Patty Jenkins did with Wonder Woman, having that fantastic scene with like them fighting Steppenwolf. He has that scene with Aquaman, and they have William Dafoe come in. I mean, there's just so much lore in this, so it works together. Like if you watch all those films, you see the Zack Snyder cut, it all makes sense. Whereas with the Joss Whedon, just doesn't make sense. It's out. It's like out there. It's like what is this movie? Who the hell directed this?
Like the DCEU, I mean, like I said, it tried to do too much what Marvel was already doing, and every time it seemed like it would take a positive step forward, it would take 2 steps back into the left. Because Suicide Squad, I think, came out the year before in 2016, and that was a huge flop. I mean,
well, they did the same thing. They cut the movie to shreds. They had a bunch of extra material that was divulging in the characters. Like, oh, no one wants to watch that. 10-year-olds don't want to learn about the backstory. They want to see blood and violence, and they just cut the movie to shreds.
Yeah, but then Wonder Woman came out the same year as Justice League did, and that was a huge success. Like everybody thought that. Yeah, Patty Jenkins did an amazing job. Gal Gadot was amazing, and the movie was incredible.
It was perfect. Well, it was also fresh off of #MeToo. So I dare the studio executive to come into Patty Jenkins and be like, you know what, we want control of your movie. She's going to be like, hell no. But unfortunately, Wonder Woman 84 fails because they gave Patty Jenkins total control of the film, and she just kind of went crazy with it. Where in 2020, you can't just have a guy inhabitate someone else's body, and
But I mean, future films in the DCEU like Aquaman, Shazam, Birds of Prey, they all helped kind of bolster that series of films. But I think everybody is still confused as to what exactly Warner Brothers and DC are going for with these series of films. Like it's all so confusing. Like what is their ultimate goal here? I feel like they've screwed the pooch too early by introducing Darkseid by the time their 4th film has come out. I mean, it took us 18 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe before we got to see Thanos in full form. Like, so what are they doing here? I don't get it.
Well, I think that's kind of the question to ask. I don't think they know, because they've just had so much studio meddling with all their films, like Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Justice League. They finally they struck gold with like Aquaman and Wonder Woman, but I don't think they know with their trajectory, like they did Birds of Prey. They're rebooting Suicide Squad, 2.0. They found some money with Shazam, but I don't think they have like the Kevin Feige in charge of it, who's planning out the whole universe. And we don't even know if there's going to be a sequel to this film.
No, I mean, I will say the future slate of DC films does look enticing. I will say that it's, and I think the success of Joker in 2019 really kind of spurred on this thought of, we don't need films in the main series to be successful. And I feel like that kind of gave people the freedom creators to have the freedom to create films that exist within the DC universe, but they're sort of like single shot, darker stories. And like Joker isn't a traditional Joker story. Is it an origin story? Certainly it is. Is it the Joker story? Probably not. But Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix were allowed the freedom to kind of do what they wanted with that character. Mm-hmm. But we're also getting a new Batman series with Robert Pattinson.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
I am too. I will say that trailer looks amazing. Well,
dude, it's got Dano in it, and then it's got Colin Farrell, who we love. We've talked the hell out of Colin Farrell. I mean, it's going to be incredible. And Robert Pattinson is amazing as an actor. He's so great. Watch The Lighthouse. That would be my movie recommendation. If you can watch a movie that's fantastic, watch The Lighthouse. Him and William Dafoe, you'll have like a new understanding of what a great... People that say movies suck modern age, watch that movie. It's awesome.
I mean, you already mentioned the Suicide Squad. I mean, I would call that more of a soft reboot than a full reboot. I mean, Margot Robbie, Joel Kinnaman, Viola Davis are all set to come back from the original film.
Yeah.
But James Gunn kind of brings his quirky writing and James Gunn knows how to direct an ensemble film. So I feel like the Suicide Squad is in safe hands. We're also getting a Flash solo film. That is for sure happening. We've got Ezra Miller, Michael Keaton, and Ben Affleck. They're all slated to be in the film. So it's rumored that the Flash film is going to explore some of the time travel aspects that are touched on here in Zack Snyder's Justice League. But now this one is going to go full bore into them. Like Michael Keaton is said to be playing the Batman that he portrayed in 1989. And same thing with Ben Affleck. He's portraying his respective Batman. So that's going to be awesome.
Dude, I know. And like, do you know how many times Keaton has been asked to come back? He turned it down. So, I mean, I don't know what changed, but it's I'm so happy that he's coming back. Him with Affleck. I mean, fingers crossed that Bale comes back. I know they asked him, and he said he would only come back if Nolan says yes. You know, because he doesn't want to pay the disrespect to his trilogy. But that would just be insane to have all three. Oh, come on.
I mean, brief aside here. I mean, if I wanted Michael Keaton to come back as Batman, I want him to do a live action Batman Beyond where he plays an old Bruce Wayne and a very young actor. And a young actor like Timothy Chalamet plays Terry McGinnis or somebody. I think that would be the greatest movie ever made.
Oh my God. Everyone wants that. Like everyone wants Batman Beyond, you know? That was such a great series in the early 2000s. Keaton is perfect.
Yeah, I was a bit too young to remember Batman the Animated Series. I love that series. But when Batman Beyond came out, I was full on board with it. My whole 9-10-year-old self was just like, Batman cartoons.
Yeah, that series. Check it out for people that haven't seen it. It's great.
But there's other films. There's so many other films that are slated to come out. Aquaman 2, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and Black Adam are all in production. They all have confirmed release dates, and they all seem to be chugging towards those release dates. So fingers crossed that those all go off without a hitch. But there's so many other films that are in development right now, like Supergirl, Static Shock, Lobo, Green Lantern Corps, Gotham City Sirens, Batgirl, Zatanna are all in various stages of either pre-production or development. And there's too many to list here today, but this, I mean, it's left me hopeful, but at the same time, Zack Snyder has said that Warner Brothers isn't on board with making a sequel to his vision of Justice League.
I mean, so I get it because I know so many of those guys are done. Like Affleck is done with Batman. He's burned out. You know, he didn't even seem like he wanted to be there for the last 10 minutes of the film when they shot the new footage. But it's so tough, you know, like where do you go from there?
Well, it's tough to figure that out. I mean, I think you have to wait a little bit to sort of wait and see what other films are doing in the series before you come back with a new Justice League. Because I think if Zack Snyder were to do like a Justice League sequel, I think he wants to wait maybe like 10 years after his original film has come out. See what other films have kind of come out in the DCEU and build upon those.
I think he should do a trilogy.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
I think he should do a trilogy. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think him taking a break from these films would really kind of allow other creators to step in and kind of maybe not totally change, but just slightly alter the trajectory of the DCEU. Introduce some new characters, introduce some new plot points, and then you can come in and say like 2028 or something and say, we're ready to make a new Justice League.
Mm-hmm. We've had that background. We know what we're shooting for. You know, we have that outline.
I mean, but now that Zack Snyder has found some new success with his cut of Justice League, there's a new hashtag that's trending, and it's hashtag restore the Snyderverse. which, to be honest, I don't know what that looks like.
Oh, either.
I think this is just one of those things where people want it, but they don't know if they really, truly in their hearts want to know what that looks like.
No, I think they love this film and they're like, oh my God, he had such a plan moving forward. I don't know if Snyder had a plan. Maybe he shot the new footage, and who knows if that would have been the footage that was going to initially be in the film, right? No one knows, because hindsight is 2020. He's had 4 years to ruminate over, how the Joker was and how the 2017 version was. Though I heard he didn't see the 2017 version. I guess Chris Nolan saw it and he said he should never see this film.
Yeah, that's something that kind of gets forgotten when you're discussing the DCEU, is that Christopher Nolan and his wife and Zack Snyder and his wife, they all really worked together to bring about a new version of not only Superman, but really kind of plot the trajectory of what these films would look like. And then the Nolans left to work on other projects, and then Warner Brothers stepped in and just said, like, well, we're not going to do any of that. Sort of like what Disney did with George Lucas's idea for Star Wars post Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, they're like, we'll take it and we'll make money with it.
So, I mean, some final thoughts here. Overall, are you feeling hopeful for the DCEU? Like, not just for the future films, but a potential sequel for the Justice League? Has Zack Snyder kind of turned you around to being a fan of the films within this series?
So seeing this film, it's 4 hours long. It's segmented, but this film really made me enjoy the movies, a superhero movie, for what it is. Now, obviously, like I've always said, I love the Nolan trilogy. I think that's like a movie. But this film, it's right up there. It's like an epic. It's long, but you really get immersed. If you're able to focus for 4 hours, you can really get immersed in the culture and the lore, and it'll take you for a ride. So to me, this got me. I was pretty excited to see where it's going to go from here. I'm excited for the Batman film, the Flash film. I hope they continue with it, but who knows, man? How about you?
I mean, I would call it, and I use this phrase a lot, I call it a cautious optimism for the future of the DCEU. I mean,
a cautious optimism.
Yes, I hope to see, the sequels for Aquaman, Shazam, and the new Batman and the Suicide Squad. But I want to see more of those single shot, darker stories like we got with Joker. I think that there's some great material that could be mined there, like Swamp Thing. He got his own series for a while, but I think a darker remake of Swamp Thing set in today's age of political activism, I think would translate well to an audience of this generation. I feel like a lot of people have also been clamoring for an updated version of Constantine, and I think that could translate well. And then also give me more Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. I think she is a cornerstone of this series, and it's a shame that she was misused for a little bit in the original Suicide Squad. But Birds of Prey was great, and I'm hoping the Suicide Squad is great. And I want to see more of Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, because I think she's just amazing in that role.
She got it. She did. I'll agree with you there. As opposed to the Joker. Now, I've been waiting to talk about this a little bit. So what did you think of the last 10 minutes of the film? Because I know that's all the new stuff. I know a lot of people, I've heard a lot of different stories. I'll give you my opinion real quick. So I actually didn't really care for the Nightmare universe. I hate saying it, but to me, it felt out of place because, number one, Ben Affleck's face was like super skinny and he just seemed kind of bored and out of place. And I really just can't stand Jared Leto as the Joker. I don't know why, but I just can't stand him. I guess it's maybe because I love Heath Ledger's version, and Joaquin Phoenix is more like a real man turning into an enigma as opposed to like the comic book. So I just couldn't sink my fingers into it. I felt like this movie should have ended with Deathstroke and Lex Luthor, or like with the picture of the Justice League like standing up. I could not stand the Nightmare universe. It just didn't make sense to me. And it just felt
Yeah,
so.
I
It was
mean,
cool. It was cool, but it just didn't. I just couldn't get it. How about you?
it was
And if you
cool, but
liked
it
it,
just
that's
didn't.
fine.
It was cool. It just didn't do anything to help the film in that epilogue there. It just, I feel like it should have just been that montage of, our heroes dying, Darkseid taking over the Earth, and then you see this brief shot of maybe the heroes going to fight whoever. But that whole extended, really awkward conversation that Batman has with the Joker, where Joker is clearly aware of Batman's identity. That's what I took away from that. And that scene, at least that portion of it, that conversation, it just didn't do anything for me. It just felt awkward. And the scene just should have ended full stop with Superman landing in front of them and preparing to kill them all. And then, cut to Bruce Wayne waking up from a nightmare. Like, that's how that scene should have ended. Not this prolonged conversation between two adversaries.
Maybe they were just trying to write the Joker because so many people hated Jared Leto's portrayal in Suicide Squad. I don't know.
Could be, but if that's the case, then make a movie with him and Margot Robbie kind of facing off against each other. Like, do what the Harley Quinn animated series is doing on HBO Max right now, but just translate it into live action. Like, do something like that. I think that would be killer.
Yeah, I don't know. I just can't stand Jared Leto. I just don't think he understands the character. But maybe I'm ready to be wrong. I'm ready to be wrong. So who knows?
So with that in mind, what do you say we rate Zack Snyder's Justice League?
Let's do it.
All right. So our normal rating is going to apply here, since Zack Snyder, his cut of Justice League is set to get a physical media release sometime this year. So our normal rating is going to apply of wouldn't watch, would own, and would host a viewing party. What do you give to Zack Snyder's Justice League, Sean?
All right, Zack Snyder's Justice League. So for me, I'm going to rate this as, you know what? I would actually host a viewing party with this. To me, this is great. This is like all the way up on our rating scale. I think it's great. I love the idea that he came back and, I mean, he crushed it. We got to finally see his vision, his direction. They let him do the things that he wanted to do unhinged. And even though it's a long film, it's 4 hours long, but it's so rich with lore, like I've said a million times, the themes, the soundtrack of this film. When Wonder Woman appears, you get that cool background music with her character. I mean, he just righted all the wrongs, and it's so great when you get to see a director like the baby of a director's. Like this is what he crafted. This is what he wanted. This is his vision. So to me, it crushed it. Like we said, it's that ending 10 minutes, the additional footage that kind of, it's like, what is this, the epilogue? But the original 3.5 hours of this movie, great stuff. It's long, but if you're able to sit through Lord of the Rings Return of the King, I don't see why you can't sit through this. So I'm going to rate it as a viewing party. How about you, Chris?
I'm going to come in slightly below your rating, and I'm going to call this a would own. I agree that it was a brilliant idea to give Zack Snyder a chance to redo this film and bring it up to snuff with what he had in mind when he was envisioning this film. And as much as an unenviable task as Joss Whedon had taking over for him in 2017, Zack Snyder almost had an enjoyable task of saying, I basically have a blank slate, and I'm going to correct what everybody else ruined with my film, and I'm going to make it how I thought it should have been done. The dialogue was helped tremendously, either toning down or beefing up some of the characters, and I absolutely love the new look of Steppenwolf. That was one of the main weaknesses of the original film, and that was finally made right here by making him a truly formidable foe for the Justice League to tackle. And the film is meandering at times. With a 4-hour runtime, like, it's going to feel like its length does. The 240-minute runtime does not do it any favors. I enjoy the action scenes. However, I wish there were a bit more of them, and I wish a lot less of them were in slow motion. However, this film is definitely an improvement from the original cut, but this has the same issue that Batman v Superman has, that this is for the mega fans. This isn't for the casual fans. I don't think the casual fans would enjoy it as much as the mega fans would. That's why I'm calling it a would own. I'm not going to subject a casual Flash fan to come over to my home and watch this for 4 hours. That's a big ask of somebody. So Zack Snyder's Justice League, great film, but not going to ask anybody else to watch it. This is a would own for me.
Right on.
So,
I love it, Chris.
I love it too, man. But I think that's going to wrap up our very special look into Zack Snyder's Justice League. Thank you all for allowing us this indulgence here. And if you enjoyed this episode, please head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. It really helps to drive us up the charts, as well as help people like you find the show. We are across the spectrum of social media with Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's all at ForceFed Sci-Fi. You can check out and download episodes from Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, or wherever you find podcasts. And go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Finally, you can check out our website, forcefedsci-fi.com, for show notes and links to all of our social media. We'll be back to our regular scheduled programming soon, and until then, we will see you next time.
Force-Fed Sci-Fi is written and hosted by Sean Culp and Chris Rupp. Website design, associate producer, and editing by Jeremy Keski and Sean Culp. Artwork design by Mike Berger. Theme music composed and performed by Custom Anthem.